I now call Claudia Beamish to be followed by Annabel Ewing.
Thank you, Presiding Officer and Deputy Presiding Officer. I welcome the opportunity to speak in this debate and indeed the actions to come, and would like to also stress the encouragement I find in speaking in a debate for an issue that's very close to my heart about the cross-party support in this area. I would like to draw attention particularly to the challenges faced by kinship carers and the plight of looked-after teenagers in residential care. Our amendment draws attention to the work of Citizens Advice Scotland and shows that 2/3 of local authorities surveyed are still not paying kinship carers the same as foster carers. As of July 2010, 61% of looked-after children were looked after away from home, and of this, 20% were in kinship care. This is a significant group of affected families and children. I welcome the Minister's remarks in this area and would like to expand somewhat on this issue. Though all local authorities have set up a scheme to pay kinship carers, the amount varies and there is no consistency or guarantee. Some local authorities, it appears, are even means testing based on other benefits. This can't be right with the commitment that kinship carers make. I've had concerns expressed to me about these inconsistencies from constituents in Midlothian and in Dumfries and Galloway. At a recent cross-party group on carers, I met Jim Crombie. He is a parent, but also a grandparent, so a parent again, and a member of the Kinship Carers Action Midlothian. While he has concerns about the anomalies of financial support, he told me, and I quote, "It's not always about the money. The group has set up advocacy help for kinship carers to give support at review panels, and he also points out that support would be valued for such issues as anger management. Children in kinship care aren't there without a stark reason. They may have suffered bereavement, may have been subject to abuse, or lived in a chaotic and frightening household where drugs and alcohol distort family life. But in the words of Jim Crombie, often kinship carers are just left to their own devices. And though they have some funding as a group..." Yes.
Annabel Ewing. Most grateful to the member for taking intervention. I hear what she's saying, but I do also understand that, in fact, the Scottish Government funds the National Advice and Support Service for all kinship carers, and that quite considerable funding has been allotted, and that hopefully this service is providing some benefit to kinship carers, including the ones to whom she has referred. Claudia Beamish.
Thank you. I thank the member for that helpful intervention. I completely accept that point, but in terms of the range of services that the Midlothian group and perhaps others are trying to bring forward in support of the families and children involved, there still seems to be a long way to go. Though they have some funding as a group, as I say, they still have to raise money themselves to put support and often lifeline support in place. A breakdown in kinship care will be at least the second breakdown in a child's life, and kinship carers deserve all the help they can get to avert this happening. And I would ask the Scottish Government today to consider guaranteeing that out of the Change Fund commitment to carers, there will be adequate funding support for all the services from the local authorities and indeed from specialist voluntary organisations for kinship carers. This is preventive spend where it really counts at the sharp end. Presiding Officer, I would now like to turn to the plight of looked after teenagers in residential care. In 2009, there were over 1,500 looked after children in residential care of some kind. This figure has changed very little since 1997, with a few little ups and downs. A sizable proportion of teenagers are in this group, and I want to focus our attention on them. While some teenagers will have to be in residential care, some will want to remain in residential care because of the familiar setting. There are others who are desperate to move into young adulthood from within a family. From my own experience of working with teenagers in a unit who were excluded from school, there are looked after children who are waiting for a family which will never come. At this stage, it might not be adoption, but there are a range of possibilities which have been highlighted already by the Minister. My understanding is that this intractable problem has not changed over the years. I have seen in reality, as a teacher in a unit, what NSPCC Scotland highlights as growing evidence that, and I quote, poor attachment increases the likelihood that a child or young person will have low self-esteem, be hostile and possibly aggressive, and may deal with anger by self-harm, offending behaviour or risk-taking behaviour. As I remember, to this day, even if a family could be found, a teenager may well be consistently testing and tempted to reject before they are rejected. I still remember the words of one boy who asked me, "How could they ever love me?" This is not an easy challenge for teenagers and families, or those in the agencies who do their best to support and work with them. I welcome the Government's motion. These teenagers deserve our support, and I ask the Scottish Government to facilitate speedier decisions at this stage, bearing in mind the complexities of those decisions, and also again to look at preventive spend to support families who are in a very difficult situation if they take on a teenager with who is facing these challenges. Really, I believe that the Minister is right in saying that we are corporate parents, and we mustn't do this simply, and I know none of us will, but even in the hope of saving the taxpayer money in the future services and interventions these children might need and these teenagers might need later in life. But we must do it because we simply have an obligation. Thank you.